Hey everyone, thanks for being here. I just want to take a moment to acknowledge that we're on rich indigenous territory with a rich history, most recently the treaty lands of the Mississaugas of the New Credit. And I want to thank all of you for being here as part of a historic news conference uniting three opposition parties in asking Conservative MPPs to vote against Bill 108. We stand united with municipal leaders, environmental, and citizens groups in saying that we can build homes for people without destroying homes for wildlife, undermining local democratic decision-making for land use planning, and reducing development fees that are essential for building livable, vibrant communities. So I believe it's time to put partisanship aside and put the public interest first. And so that's why I'm pleased to welcome Ian Arthur from the NDP, the official opposition, and Natalie Desrosiers from the Liberals. And I'd also like to introduce our special guest today, Dr. Ann Bell from Ontario Nature, who will talk about the importance of protecting wildlife and their habitat, and Alex Spiegel, a partner with Windmill Developments, who will talk about how developers can build sustainable communities for people without bulldozing prime farmland and wildlife habitat. So I'll turn it over to Ian.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for coming. Bill 108 is a massive step backwards for endangered species in Ontario. It provides an avenue for sprawl developers to pay to pave over wetlands and forests that would have otherwise been protected. It undermines the scientific integrity of CSIRO and the scientific intent of the Endangered Species Act. It allows the minister to overrule protections, and it is being rammed through the legislature with little debate or stakeholder input. All of this is at a time when Earth is facing a human-caused mass extinction of species that will only accelerate as the climate crisis grows. In its recently released report, the Intergovernmental Science Policy Platform on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services did not mince its words. Nature is declining globally at rates unprecedented in human history, and the rate of species extinction is accelerating with grave impacts on people around the world now likely. We are eroding the very foundations of our economies, livelihoods, food security, health, and quality of life worldwide. The report does also tell us that it's not too late to make a difference, but only if we start now at every level, from local to global, and despite what this government thinks, that would include provincially. I would like to emphasize the role of the climate crisis here. This bill represents numerous attacks on species at risk in Ontario now, but it also utterly fails to consider what the climate emergency means to endangered species, and that the inadequacy of protections offered will be exaggerated as we face decreasing habitat, extreme weather, and reduced resources. And here I would point to the thousands and thousands of spectacled flying foxes that died from heat in Australia last year, the fact that our children will probably never get to visit the Great Barrier Reef, and the extinctions that have already been directly caused by climate change. We live in a time where we must turn the mechanism of government to do everything in its power to deal with this crisis. It must transcend political boundaries because it will touch everything. Endangered species, infrastructure, healthcare, pension funds, you name it. It's going to have an effect on it. By ramming Bill 108 through the legislature, this government is giving yet another indicator of its derision and its contempt for both species at risk and the planet. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup. Merci d'être ici. It's a real pleasure for me to be here with my colleagues and with representatives from Ontario Nature. And thank you, Mr. Spiegel, for being here as well. The PC government yesterday has refused even the most basic amendments to adjust its reckless pro-developer changes to the Endangered Species Act. Our commitment to biodiversity is hereby endangered. Scientific integrity of the process is endangered, and our environment is also endangered. Several aspects of the bill are dangerous. Number one, it diminishes the credibility of scientific assessment of the categorizations of species by adding non-scientific voices in the initial assessment, by directing the committee to always use the lowest risk assessment, no matter what the circumstances are. Number two, it ignores the precautionary principle, which is fundamental to our commitment to protecting the environment, by possibly delaying protection of a species to accommodate either a pro-development schedule or a governmental schedule. It introduces a pay-to-slay system without much accountability, and it limits notification pursuant to the Environmental Bill of Rights. Tout le monde veut plus de développement et plus de logements. Mais il est possible d'avoir plus de logements sans pour autant diminuer notre protection de l'environnement. Everyone wants more housing and more density in housing. Suggesting that more housing cannot be done without endangering our environment is simply wrong, and it's short-sighted. Protecting species at risk can be done and should be done. Biodiversity is what allows us to continue to eat the food we eat and protect our natural environment. Ça me fera plaisir, évidemment, de répondre aux questions en français.
Go ahead. Okay. Thank you. I'm very happy to be here with you and very happy to be here at a cross-party press conference. I think that's wonderful. For many, many weeks now, I've been working with dozens of colleagues and concerned citizens, trying to shed light on the truth about the proposed changes to the Endangered Species Act. The government claims that these changes will improve outcomes for species at risk, and that is simply not true. Any MPP that has been saying this is misleading the public. And any MPP who actually believes this nonsense needs to wake up right now. Here are the facts. And we've already heard many facts, and I'm just going to add a few more to the list. Globally, we are losing species at 1,000 times the natural background rate. Wildlife populations have declined worldwide by about 60% since the 1970s. About 1 million species are now threatened with extinction, and the primary driver of this loss, biodiversity loss and species extinction, is habitat loss and habitat degradation, driven by unsustainable use of our lands and waters. These global patterns of biodiversity loss and species decline hold true across Canada and Ontario. In Canada, about half of our vertebrate wildlife species, and so that's birds, mammals, snakes, amphibians, and so on, about half of these monitored species are in decline. And since 1970, that rate of decline, the average decline, is 83%. 83% decline for half of our wild vertebrate species since 1970. That's in my lifetime, and that's why it really hurts. In Ontario specifically, we have over 230 species at risk, and that number goes up every year as scientists assess new species. For example, all of our turtle species, all of them are now on the species at risk list. Despite these facts, the Government of Ontario has put forward a bill that will strip endangered species of their current legal protections. And we've already heard what will happen. I think MPP Desrosiers gave a very good summary of how these protections will be undermined. So all I will add to that is that these proposed changes, if passed, are so profound and so thorough that the Endangered Species Act will be a hollow shell of its former self. It will be pretty much useless in addressing the ongoing decline of endangered species. Back in 2007, the Ontario government passed the Endangered Species Act with support from all parties. Across party lines, almost all MPPs recognized their profound responsibility to protect and recover our most vulnerable plants and animals. I'm proud to be here today with MPPs who still recognize that responsibility. Thank you very much. And I hope desperately that tomorrow there will be MPPs who are willing to cross party lines and to vote accordingly and to recognize their responsibility to all life in this province.
Thank you very much for having me here. Bill 108 is a complex bill with many different impacts, so it's difficult to provide a detailed analysis in a few short minutes. The tagline of Bill 108 sounds positive: cut red tape, reduce costs, and increase the supply of housing. Some of the proposed changes in the bill sound supportable at first glance, providing clearer rules and shorter timeframes around the approvals process. hiring more LPAT adjudicators, and providing more clarity around municipal charges. However, our concern is that the devil is in the details. How these goals are in fact proposed to be achieved may also threaten the protection of our sensitive natural areas, reduce intensification targets to permit more sprawl development, and reduce municipalities' capacity to raise funds for community development. It is also being enacted in a very rushed time frame with little or no consultation with municipalities and the communities who will be directly affected by it. Increasing the supply of housing is certainly one very good way to make housing more affordable. Incidentally, there are other ways, such as introducing measures to discourage speculation and flipping, as has been done in BC. But I digress. Increasing the supply of housing is indeed an imperative to help us meet the increasing demand from all sectors of our growing population: first-time buyers, young families, new immigrants, and seniors. However, there are many ways to accommodate new development growth without encroachment on prime agricultural land or sensitive habitats. As developers committed to a triple bottom line approach, people, planet, and prosperity, we are focused on building walkable, mixed-use communities within our urban boundaries. This approach to development, on underutilized land, on brownfield sites, near transit, and in the missing middle, achieve densities that support transit use, lower our carbon footprint, and provide more compact, livable, and healthier communities while preserving our natural heritage, open space, natural habitat, and agricultural land. We support a planning and development process that is fair, transparent, and consultative, which is judged on the basis of good design and proper planning principles, which provides clear rules around the process of decision-making, and which builds communities that both reduce our carbon footprint and provide equitable housing choices. We need well-designed communities that will provide happier, healthier, more sustainable living within the capacity of our one planet. This is the imperative for us today, and therefore I submit that the bill should certainly be considered to meet those goals. Thank you.